Think whatever you want about Deion Sanders. He just had a brilliant idea with Fran Brown.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. I love March Madness, but I love college football, and I love that this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Do you need to worry about Missouri making the playoff again with a new quarterback? Ohio State has a new quarterback. Quarterback battles are in season. So too is spring football, and Deion Sanders had a great idea. He was talking about spring games and said he doesn't want them to go away because they're a great thing for fans, put them in a competitive environment. And he threw out the idea, because their spring game will be on ESPN too, clearly not worried about transfer portal tampering and such. He said, well, I'd love to get another team in here and organize some scrimmages and go against, guys that aren't our own players. It gets a little monotonous after a while. And I thought that would be fun. And then I'm scrolling through Twitter one day, seeing what's going on, and I see there's a response to that tweet. There's a quote reply from someone named Fran Brown, and I thought, oh look, someone jokingly suggested that Syracuse would go and Fran Brown actually said that. These two guys are my favorite coaches in America right now, because whereas some programs, Nebraska, are going the way of getting rid of their spring games, which I'm not in favor of, Ohio State, these two programs are saying, hey, we recognize how great this is for fans. Why don't we get together and have some organized scrimmages? Now, I have long been a proponent of keeping college football separate from the NFL. I don't want it to look the same. I don't want it to feel the same. I don't want those two sports to suddenly blend together and just be one and the same, because they never fully will be, but I want them to stay as far apart as they can. There are, however, select instances in which I think the college football world can look at the NFL and say, we wouldn't be tearing at the fabric of our sport or fundamentally changing it if we adopted a concept that they use up there. And guess what? This is one of those examples. This would be great, because while I still enjoy spring games and watching teams go against each other, or against themselves, I should say, it's kind of hard to draw conclusions for fans, because when you have your own team's offense going against your own team's defense, well, how do you know when one team has success, whether it's good offense or bad defense, or good defense or bad offense? You can't always tell. So it's still good, because you get fans excited. For a lot of fans, it's an opportunity to get into the stadium when they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it, because it's expensive during the season, or maybe they have seasonal jobs like I do, and they don't have the ability to go to a game during the season. And I look at that and say, no, I don't want to take that from fans. I want fans to be able to engage with their teams. That's why I bring you guys college football content 5 days a week, all year round, 6 days a week during the season. I want you to be able to enjoy the sport. Hopefully this show's a part of that. But there are a lot of other aspects. This show is probably, 10th or 11th on the list or so, but hey, I'm just happy to be there. There are a lot of ways that you engage with your college football team, that you enjoy your product that they put out on the field. You get excited, you get to see new guys, get to see new recruits. It's a great opportunity for freshmen to be in, a simulated game environment, get in front of the home crowd for the first time. There are a lot of benefits to a spring game, and each coach has a different take. Dan Lanning of Oregon said, no, we think it's a great opportunity to get out there and compete. As long as I'm going to be here, we're going to have a spring game. I would love it even more if a spring game was an organized scrimmage between two different teams. Then you could get, and coaches would benefit from this as well. Players would benefit from this. Media entities, content people like me would benefit. There's no real downside here. Now, what some might throw out there, and I had this thought too, is, well, what if someone gets injured? You're going against another team. When you're going against your own guys, players have gotten injured or dinged up in the offseason for a very long time. You're still not going to be able to hit the quarterback. You're still not going to have, you're probably going to put, those protective covers on the helmets for everybody. It's fine. We don't need to be showcasing new uniforms or anything that time of year that, look super fancy. You're trying to give yourself a glimpse. You're trying to give your fans a glimpse. And you get a better read as a coaching staff when you go against another team where you're actually at. Because the defense that you go against in practice every day, well, they know a lot of the plays you're running offensively. Doesn't mean they can stop them all the time, but Syracuse wouldn't know Colorado's plays. The Orange would come in and be running stuff that the Buffs defense haven't seen before. So you get a better chance to run, what is closer to a game environment. So even if it were a scrimmage type setting, as it basically is in the NFL, where they're kind of doing drills going against each other, even that's more fun. Even if you had no pads on and you were just playing 7-on-7, it would be more exciting to watch two teams go against each other. So I don't know if these guys are going to make this happen. Colorado spring game, he's on ESPN2. Maybe Fran Brown wants some publicity for his program because they just quietly won 10 games last year. And he's got a heck of a team that, depending on what happens at quarterback, they too have some quarterback questions there up at Syracuse. But if they win 9 or 10 games again, it could be building something. So maybe he seizes that sort of opportunity. But I'm not sure who loses in this scenario. Can you imagine? Let's go to Nebraska, for instance, who canceled their spring game and they're doing a showcase or whatever. It's not the same. Let's say Nebraska brought in a school from a different conference, Wake Forest, for example. Are you going to be more interested in watching that on TV, or as a Nebraska fan, or as a Wake Forest fan, if it's a spring game against somebody else? I bet you would be. NC State's not bringing huge crowds to their spring game. Might get more interesting if you've got Oklahoma coming to town. It could be any number of matchups. I don't care if it's in the conference. I don't care if it's a non-conference sort of deal. This could be a great idea for college football that would be great for fans. And I would like to establish once again, if you are listening to or watching the show for the first time, I am ardently pro-fan. I am a big pro-fan sort of guy. It's why I don't want to see spring games go away. I think this would be an enhancement to the spring game experience. I think if you brought in a competition level, when you're talking about who you would bring in to play, that's similar to where you are. I think it's better for coaches. I think it's better for players. I think it's better for fans. I think it's better for media people. I think it's better for content creators. It's all better across the board. The injury risks are the exact same. Guys have gotten hurt in spring games before. Quarterbacks will still be protected. You wear some more gear. You set it up so that you're not going, 110% all the time. And I think it could be a great idea. So I applaud Deion Sanders for having that idea, and I doubly applaud Fran Brown at Syracuse for responding on Twitter saying, yeah, hey, I'd be open to it. Let's set it up. I hope this gets set up. I really, really do. I think it could be an absolute blast. Let me know what you think below in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter. All of that good stuff. In the SEC, one team has the weirdest schedule you've ever seen. It's Missouri. They have a really favorable schedule again. But are they going to be a playoff threat this year? Eli Drinkwitz thought they were last season. They were not. But what about this year? First, this episode brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Finding the right talent is important. If you need help with a marketing campaign, for instance, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Upwork.com. Then check out Fabric, because With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college, and that's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. As a parent, you want peace of mind. You want to make sure your family's financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives you that peace of mind. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Check them out at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Will Missouri make it 3 straight years, winning 10 or more games, with a new sheriff in town at quarterback? John Miller, Locked On Mizzou, is here to discuss that very fact. Is Bo Pribula, the Penn State transfer, who was a backup, of course, left Penn State in the middle of their potential championship run? They went to the playoff semifinal, and that's the way this weird, wacky college football calendar works, John. But is he locked into the starter? And if so, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think he's the definite safe bet to be your starter next season. You usually don't pay somebody reportedly $1.5 million or so in NIL money to not be the starter. But at the same time, Missouri keeps saying Sam Horn, a two-sport guy, baseball and football for Missouri, actually coming off of Tommy John surgery. He should be pretty much a full go here in spring. He's got a definite shot at it, a former top 100 type player. But Pribula definitely the safe bet. And I think he's shown enough in limited action with Penn State, enough upside for Missouri fans to get excited about.
The upside is real. Dual threat kind of guy. Came in Wildcat situations with Penn State frequently a season ago. But even with Missouri's schedule, which we will get to in this segment, is one of the craziest things I have ever seen. And I triple checked before I came on here to record because it just didn't quite look right. Is Pribula the kind of guy that you think just slides in and, is Missouri's system good enough, or a combination of the two, to where it's going to be, Missouri's a 9-10 win team in the SEC again this year?
I think, man, assuming 9 to 10 wins is tough. It really is. I think if you look at FanDuel right now, I think the total over/under for the season is 6.5.
7.5. It got touched up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. I was going to say I would bump that up to probably 7.5. That was just what I was going to say. That seems like a little bit more of a fair number to me. So 9 or 10. That seems a little bit bold for a guy who's never been a full-time starter before. I would say if Eli Drinkwitz can pull off 10 this year, heck, get another extension coming. I think more realistically 2026 may be the year where Missouri really breaks out again.
When you look at where the Tigers have been at quarterback the last couple of years with Brady Cook, how do you feel like Bo Pribula can step in with the weapons around him? No Luther Burden now, off to the NFL draft this season. How do you feel like that quarterback production is going to change, maybe for better or for worse? Or do you think it's capable of just staying the same?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think Pribula can definitely be a Brady Cook type of quarterback eventually. I think he's even got higher upside than that. But of course, Cook, a very much an experienced guy, a steady hand at the position. That's my thing, the experience part of it. But I do think there's a chance Pribula steps in and really carries this offense to be certain. But I would assume maybe Missouri leans a little bit more run heavy this season, and considering where Pribula came from, Penn State, maybe leans on the tight end passing game a little more than Drinkwitz has so far at Missouri.
What do you want to see from Bo Pribula in the spring to give you signs of hope that, hey, this might not be a soft reset sort of year and Missouri might be, right back in the playoff hunt?
I kind of just want to see him take the reins in the leadership role. I don't know how much you can really learn in terms of actual football in the spring these days, especially with limited access. But I think you can learn things from quotes from players in particular. Coaches are usually going to kind of obviously put their coach speak on it. I think sometimes the players, they're always told to not say anything, but they can give you little hints. If they're feeling great about a guy, I think they tend to let you know. And maybe if there's a question mark there, or perhaps they're leaning another way at the position, I think that stuff tends to come out.
I want to get to Missouri's schedule because this is another factor in looking at whether the Tigers are a 10-plus win team again this year. And of course, it was 10-2 in 2023, 9-3 in 2024, and then they won the bowl game against Iowa. But this is the strangest schedule maybe in the country, John. It's wacky, bizarre, very weird, but at the end of the day, pretty beneficial for Eli Drinkwitz and the Tigers, and very manageable, again, in a lot of ways, because the scheduling hasn't rotated kind of to the next crop of teams that you're going to match up with yet. So, Texas has got another favorable schedule. Oklahoma's is really hard again. Florida's is really hard again. It's kind of the same storylines for the most part, schedule-wise, but Missouri plays each of their first 6 games at home. There are no neutral sites. There are no road games. Nothing. Just 6 straight games in Columbia. I mean, how did their athletic director pull that off?
I don't know. It was quite a coup, I suppose. I think Greg Sankey may deserve a little credit there too. But yeah, I think the Missouri-Kansas game coming back, getting snuck in there has something to do with that. But I'll tell you, last year Missouri started with 4 straight home games. And as somebody who goes to all the games, I'll be honest, I was kind of like, when the time the road game came along, I was like, oh, I kind of needed a break. I'm not going to lie. My liver
TV is a good invention. I want to use it.
Absolutely. I like my projector down in my basement. I'm not going to lie to you. So it was nice to get some use out of it. But yeah, really considering the real advantageous part about this, it's not so much the 6 to start, it's that you don't get then 4 in a row on the road. You get 2 in a row on the road, 4 total on the road. So you get 2 on the road, then 2 at home, then 2 on the road to finish. So again, it did kind of it's lying out pretty good for Missouri right now in terms of scheduling.
It's just weird. By the time that first road game comes around, and remind me who that first road game's against?
Auburn.
Yeah, got to go to Jordan-Hare, which is one of the most haunted places in all.
Great pronunciation, by the way.
Thank you. You got to go to Jordan-Hare and try to win your first road game where you won't have been all year. I mean, heck, I would take a G5 or FCS matchup at that point just to get my team in the mode of understanding what it takes to win a road game, to go away from home. They're going to be such homebodies. I mean, that's a month and a half. And they're not going to go anywhere, which is great on the one hand, but boy, early outset, I don't know how good Auburn's going to be with Jackson Arnold at quarterback, John, but right now, just based on that, I'd say I don't know that Missouri is going to go down to Auburn and win that game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. Of course, Missouri has Alabama and South Carolina at home before this, so we're going to learn a lot about the Tigers before we get down to Jordan-Hare Stadium. And hopefully it'll be positive things, obviously, from my perspective. But it is interesting. Yeah, Auburn, Oklahoma, the teams that have sort of flipped on Missouri, the home to road, for sort of the negative side. I am worried about Auburn maybe taking a step forward. I'm worried about Oklahoma taking a step forward. But at the same time, I'm really glad we've got the Tide at home, and I'm glad we've got South Carolina at home. So I think my point there is, I think I would rather have it the way it laid out than it laid out last year, when all the talk was, well, Missouri had an easy schedule, and also, what the heck are they doing playing at Massachusetts? Well, to your point, Spencer, maybe there's method to the madness. They got that early road game out of the way against UMass, that type of deal.
Yeah, just get you familiar with the process of it. Not, hey, here's your first road game in over a year, pretty much, and here you go. You get to go down to one of the rowdiest environments in the country. I'll get you out of here.
I was just going to say, I'll correct myself really quickly. I do realize, actually, Missouri's first road game last year was against Texas A&M, and they got beat down pretty hard in that game. So hopefully, to your point, hopefully history won't repeat itself again, and maybe, like you said, the schedules may get a lot tougher for Missouri in 2026, you would assume. So that may throw some cold water on my previous theory.
I want to get you out of here on this, John. Who's the most important transfer for the Tigers? The portal's such a big thing now. Everybody uses it to a different extent. Even Dabo Swinney's dipping his toe in the water on the transfer portal. One guy from the portal that has to stand out or have, close to a ceiling caliber year for the Tigers to be a 9-10 win team.
Well, I think a lot of people would say Damon Wilson, the edge transfer from Georgia. Everybody expects him to be a really, really good player. I'm going to go in a little different direction, though, just because I feel pretty good about Missouri's front four. I'm going to say Stephen Hall from Washington State. That transfer at cornerback. I think Missouri in 2022 and 2023, they had two NFL caliber cornerbacks on the outside. That wasn't necessarily the case last season. If Missouri can raise the level of play on the outside, I think that defense could be pretty nasty.
A Pac-12 transfer. What is dead may never die. John Miller, Locked On Mizzou. That's definitely not dying over there on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate the time, John. We're flipping over to the Big Ten next because there's a little bit more legitimate of a quarterback battle brewing up in Columbus. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. They have an all-in-one convenience priority because that's what they're all about. Instead of just juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals all in one app. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year, monarchmoney.com. The reigning national champs will have a new quarterback next year. Who will that quarterback be? We don't know, and that's why spring football is great. Jay Stevens, also great, of Locked On Buckeyes, joining me here on the show. You got all sorts of names in that room, Jay. You've got Julian Sayin, you've got Tavian St. Clair. Is it just those two guys? Anybody else in the mix? Like, what's going on here in Columbus?
Those are two of the guys that are in the mix. You can't forget the oldest man in the room being Lincoln Kienholz. He is a Buckeye that has progressed a lot during his time at Ohio State. But Julian Sayin is a guy that Will Howard praised when he was at the NFL Combine. Other former Buckeyes praised Julian Sayin's arm talent and saying it's his time now. Now, Sayin has to still go out there and win the job, but when you're getting high praise from guys that are about to get drafted into the National Football League, that's pretty big. Sayin's release, his ability to process very, very quickly are two of the reasons why I believe he's going to win the job, but he has to go out there and do it on the field. 15 spring practices, continue that work throughout the summer, in the fall camp, and Ryan Day's probably going to name a starting quarterback between weeks 2 and 3 of fall camp. Yeah, it's unfortunate that Buckeye fans have to wait a little bit longer before Ryan Day names a starting quarterback. There's 3 names in the room and 3 names in the battle, but there's truly only one guy that many people believe is going to win the job. That's Julian Sayin.
Can Sayin be expected to perform at the same level that Will Howard did last year? I thought Howard would have a career year. He did. Of course, led Ohio State to their first national championship since the 2014-15 season. And I just look at what he was able to do, particularly down the stretch, Jay. I don't know which first-year starter in all of college football is really capable of that.
No, I do not put him on that pedestal. One thing that Will Howard had in his bag was multiple years of playing there at Kansas State that allowed him to be ready for Ohio State last year, had to work on his mechanics and really work to perform with players that are a lot faster and better than what he had at Kansas State. I think Sayin or whoever, I'm just going to assume he's going to be the starter, or whoever the starting quarterback is at Ohio State in the fall, is probably going to have more of a C.J. Stroud start to their career. C.J. Stroud was very close to losing to Minnesota during his first start of his career, followed that up, as you know so well, to a loss to Oregon, and then all of a sudden he missed the game. Some say it was due to injury. Some say maybe he was about to lose his job. He came back after that and played phenomenal football, but there were some early season growing pains. And I do think for Sayin or Kienholz, I don't think St. Clair is going to win the job. He's a true freshman. That's not going to happen. I do think there's going to be some early season growing pains, and you might see an early season loss, maybe to a Big Ten school, maybe to Texas in week 1. But those types of things are going to help whoever that guy is to start for the Buckeyes at quarterback. It's going to help them be a better quarterback at the end of the day.
When you look at what Sayin brings to the table, the physical traits are immense. He's going to have the best wide receiver in college football to throw to. If he starts for 2 years, those guys could have quite the chemistry, he and Jeremiah Smith, of course, who I'm referring to, by the time the 2026 season gets underway. But do you think he has a situation around him, assuming that it is Sayin? I'll ask you more about that in a moment. But if he winds up starting this year, for the Buckeyes. This is a unit that has lost 4 offensive linemen, 1 wide receiver to Mekabuku to the NFL draft, a bunch of guys on defense. Like, what can actually be expected of the new Buckeyes quarterback?
To figure it out throughout the season, similar to what I just mentioned. You have Jeremiah Smith. You also have Max Clare, the transfer tight end from Purdue.
By the way, one of my favorite pickups in the entire country. I
Yes.
wanted Oregon to get him. The moment I watched the Ducks play Purdue on a Friday night, I watched that guy for like 2 plays and said, dude, I want him. I want that guy. And Ohio State didn't use the tight ends a ton this past year. Max Clare is that guy.
Hey, so you mentioned Oregon. I got a little beef with Oregon, too. A couple years,
Wow, you
last
beat him in
year?
the Rose Bowl. Who
No,
cares?
You guys got no boy from Michigan State. All of a sudden, oh, no, he's going out to Oregon. And then this year, I was very high on one of Max Clare's former teammates, and Dylan Finneman. Y'all got him, too. So not only do you get a couple guys hey, we got a tight end. You could have had a safety that would have been a great pair for Caleb Downs.
Because Ohio State's lacking in the safety department, right?
Hey, man, they're rotating right now at safety because they don't know who Caleb Downs' running mate's going to be. What was the question, Spencer? I got so annoyed by the Oregon
The
comment.
question was the support system around whoever Ohio State's starting quarterback is when you're changing 3 or 4 offensive linemen and an NFL caliber wideout.
The support system is one that it's going to be benefited not only because the Max Clare's there, but Ohio State got a couple of tackles, offensive tackles out of the portal that are going to help these young men, whoever the starting quarterback is, get up to speed. Ohio State also is going to have more depth on the offensive line, where in past years when you put a first-time starting quarterback out there, they're working behind an offensive line that doesn't have depth or doesn't have experience, and everyone's trying to put it all together at the same time. I also think the addition of C.J. Donaldson is going to help whoever the quarterback is use the running game to help that quarterback slowly move into the game. If you go into a season with an offensive line that has no depth and no experience, running backs that aren't able to get the job done, while you have elite guys on the outside, you're going to struggle. But I do think Ohio State supporting cast, not just on the outside, but on the interior, on the offensive line, it's going to help the young quarterback do a lot of good things. But I truly expect some early season struggles. They may not result in losses, but I expect them to struggle. But those struggles are going to help them at the end of the day because winning is tough. I mean, winning a game as a starting quarterback is hard. And then you add in, you're going up against Texas, who was a national semifinalist a year ago that Ohio State beat in the Cotton Bowl. That just adds fuel to the fire and why that game, win or loss, is going to be a struggle for the Buckeye starting quarterback.
Assign percentages to each of the 3 quarterbacks. Tavian St. Clair, Lincoln Keenholz, Julian Sayin. Percentage in terms of likelihood that each of those guys is the starting quarterback come this fall.
I'll go young guy first. I say 0%. And people may be upset with that. I don't care. He's a true freshman. He's not a Jeremiah Smith type player or a Caleb Downs type player, at least not right now. I put 0% for him. I would probably say 30% for Keenholz because he does have the athletic traits that make me realize that Hartline might want to utilize that. Also, just the long tenure there in the program, being the longest tenure guy there. And I would probably say the other 70% is going to Julian Sayin. Keenholz is a better thrower right now than he was at this time a year ago. Sayin is also a better thrower right now than he was this time a year ago. But I think it's 70-30. Sorry, the young guy. Sorry, St. Clair. I can't give you anything right now because I don't see a scenario where Ryan Day is going to start a true freshman, especially when you got those 2 guys above them that are really good quarterbacks and really good players. I would say 70% Sayin, 30% Keenholz. It probably should be more 75-25. But I have a gut feeling that Keenholz is going to show a lot of people out there he has what it takes to be a Buckeye starting quarterback.
Lastly, Jay, I've been on a mission to find the most important transfer for every team that I talk about here on the show. Who from the portal does Ohio State need to pop for them to reach their ceiling this year, which is probably get back to the playoff, maybe national semifinal?
Probably Ethan Ananwa, the left tackle transfer from Rice. Call me crazy for going with an offensive lineman. But Spencer,
I don't think you're crazy.
You watch college football. You know what Ohio State went through last year, going down to their 9th offensive lineman, rotating at guards in the playoffs. doing things you really don't think about, moving a guard to a tackle who now may be a first-round pick. You don't really think about those things and say, oh, in the next year, the following team may have to deal with that again, but that's reality. Ohio State had to deal with so many issues, injury issues on the offensive line, but when you can pick up a guy that some NFL people say could have been a second or third round pick this year, but stays in schools, transfers up to Ohio State, and he's going to protect the blind side of the starting quarterback. I'm not even going to put a name in this conversation. Just starting quarterback in general. That's the key. I could have added some other guys there, a Max Clare, a C.J. Donaldson. I could have done that. But when you get that blind side correct, it makes a quarterback's job a whole lot easier.
Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes, making my job and your job easier to be an informed college football fan. That'll do it for today. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.